One more time again.
One more time, Mark will be back with all kinds of tales of love and romance in Paris and, the usual.
Yeah.
Things that people talk about after they've been to Paris. Last week we ran out of time before we were able to get to a film that I think you and I both want to talk about quite a bit, which is new on Blu-ray.
Yeah,
let's just jump right into this. This is new from Cohen.
And I'm I thought 1991, Daughters of the Dust. This is restored on Blu-ray, by the way.
Beautiful.
This is an extraordinary
beautiful.
film. 25th year restoration of Julie Dash's Daughters of the Dust. The film is about the Gula people who live on these little islands off the coast of South Carolina, which is an interesting story in and of itself.
Primarily a story of women, we should point out.
A story of these women and what they would do. The Gula people is they would dye the cotton fabrics from the plantations to sort of indigo blue.
Yeah,
it was just it's a beautiful film for all kinds of reasons. But this is what I want to talk about. Well, first, let me finish with this. This is a beautiful restoration. The disc features all kinds of amazing things, including an interview with Julie Dash and several other folks, a couple of media studies professors and whatnot, several of the actors who were in the film, including Regina. It's a beautiful, beautiful, just fantastic in terms of all of that. But in terms of Julie Dash, in terms of of this extraordinary female director who happens to be black, born out of her time apparently, because her career, and she's had a career, but it hasn't been the career that it would have been.
It has not been. If we want to talk about, and there are only a handful of black women who have ever been. Who've ever broken through both the glass ceiling and the race ceiling to be able to be successful filmmakers. There's really only a handful of them.
Yeah.
And
people don't know, Maya Angelou was the first black woman to write a screenplay, a Hollywood screenplay. There had been other women during the sort of race period. Georgia, I think was the name of the film. Yeah, Georgia. And it had to be directed in Sweden. Mm-hmm. Dirk Benedict, by the way, is in there.
I did not know that.
Young Dirk Benedict. That's Maya Angelou, and that was like about 1972, 73, something like that. So, and this is another 10 or 20 years later.
And we are now, almost 25 some odd years later, plus 26, 7 years later for Ava DuVernay, who is now sort of the beneficiary of everyone who's come before. But Julie Dash was part of a group called the LA Rebellion, which a lot of people probably don't know about because it's one of these unsung, sort of under the radar groups. But the LA Rebellion was a group of predominantly black UCLA film students,
black and Latino,
and Latino, but mostly black, who were UCLA film students who just kind of came together to sort of form their own new wave of sorts. And it was a short-lived new wave, but it's not that different from the Dogma filmmakers in Denmark, or even
later, 20 years later.
Yeah, or even from what the new German cinema group did with the Oberhausen Manifesto. It's in all of these cases, these are filmmakers who get together and just say, we have a particular aesthetic, a particular point of view. It doesn't override who we are as individuals or what our individual aesthetic is, but as a collective, we are going to be able to make the individual voices louder. And
gave us Charles Burnett.
Yeah, Charles Burnett was part of that, and probably to date the most famous one of them is Charles Burnett. But Julie Dash came out of that, and she was the first black woman to get a theatrically released feature film. That had never happened before. She broke that, and then her career really went nowhere after that. She had kind of a lackluster follow-up, and if everybody who made a really bad first or second film never got another chance, most of these Marvel movies wouldn't exist.
Look, they call it the Southmore curse for a reason. It's to be expected. And it wasn't that it was a bad film either. And certainly she's made some interesting films since.
She should have had a better career.
Much better career now. And now, on the heels of that, some things are coming back around.
And then, Billy Woodbury is another LA Rebellion figure who is really significant. His films are finally coming out. Billy Woodbury was working for the UCLA film department when I was there, when I was in film school. And, we didn't know. We didn't know who our teachers were until, but Billy wasn't even a teacher. He was handling a lot of the equipment and the technical stuff. And, people are like, that guy's a major filmmaker. Why is he working here? Well, he's working there because he did some very avant-garde stuff and he was ahead of his time.
And Hollywood worked the way it worked at the time. It's interesting. And when we talk about the hashtag Oscar so why, this, that, and all of these conversations that have gone on over the last 3 or 4 years, which of course are not conversations from the last 3 or 4 years, but actually conversations from the last 60, 65, 70 years or more. And they sort of pop up every now and again. Well, one of the reasons why it's important is because a number of these filmmakers, including Julie Dash, who we're talking about now, her film is Daughters of the Dust, 25th year anniversary edition out on Cohen, did not have the careers that they ought to have had because Hollywood had this sort of myopic sort of understanding of the way things work. And that's one of the reasons why that conversation had to be had in the last 3 or 4 years.
This movie was made for $1 million. Yeah. $1 million, which is nothing. I mean, by today's standards, it's like a $4 million, $3 million film, which is still nothing.
Yeah.
It's still very little.
And it still had its best run on PBS, let me point out, as the Corporation for Public Broadcasting looks at being defunded. Daughters of the Dust would have never have been seen by as many people as who did see it if they hadn't seen it on PBS.
Yeah, it is. Anyway, there's an interview with Julie Dash and Dr. Stefan Dunn, who is from Morehouse College. There's a Q&A with Julie Dash and Cheryl Bruce from the Chicago Film Festival. And there's an interview with cinematographer Arthur Jaffa. And the best part of this is the audio commentary with Julie Dash and Michelle Mater. Julie is so articulate and she's so smart, and she's been a part of Film Independent for quite a number of years. So the Independent Spirit Awards, she's always played a very strong part in that organization as well, despite the fact that people don't really talk about her. But I hope this resurrects her career because she can still direct. There's nothing stopping people from giving her movies to direct. So Daughters of the Dust is just a beautiful poetic movie. It is. I'm so happy that it's been rediscovered. You know, we've both talked this film up since. I mean, this film came out when we started as film critics, and we've talked her career up for decades. And it's a
beautiful film too. Sometimes in talking about the film and talking about the fact that it's a woman film about these women, and I failed to mention that this is an extraordinarily beautiful film. Cinematography is beautiful. All of these black women in these white gowns roaming around these pristine sort of South Carolina islands.
It's amazing.
And that Gullah language, because the Gullah people have their own very sort of particular language.
Kind of dialect.
Dialect from West Africa and then all that kind of stuff. Extraordinary.
It's an amazing movie, and it deserves all the accolades that it is belatedly getting. But you know what would be great? Give Julie Dash a job again. Let her pick a project and go to town, because she is an amazing talent.
Also here from the Warner Archive, Julie Christie's Demon Seed.
Oh dear!
This movie really disturbed me way back in the mid '70s. Sort of like a post. What was the one with Mia Farrow and film?
Rosemary's Baby.
Yeah, which I've been watching. It's been running on regular television here lately.
There are a lot of those from that era. I mean, obviously, from Rosemary's Baby up to The Omen, there's a lot of sort of evil child stuff going on, possessed child,
like the Seventh Sign. And all that stuff.
And this is when you name your movie Demon Seed, you are pretty much saying to the people who like Rosemary's Baby, if you like Rosemary's Baby, come see Demon Seed. That's pretty much what the title says.
That was literally what it was. Why don't the Warner people put more stuff on there?
Well, the Warner Archive line is manufacture on demand. So these are the titles that are effectively selected to be sort of boutique-y. So we get them on Blu-ray, but we don't get them. You'll get it if you order it, and they won't make it unless you order it. So that's the way this works. But you know what? I mean, I have mixed feelings about Demon Seed. It's appropriately creepy, but it is yet at the same time it's somehow it almost feels like it belongs more to the John Boorman end of those things, Zardoz and Exorcist 2. It almost feels like it belongs a little bit to the kitschier end of that period. But still, I mean, it's Julie Christie, and you just cannot go wrong with Julie Christie in any way whatsoever.
Julie Christie in 1977, no, you cannot go wrong with any of that.
And nobody remembers anything from '77 except for Close Encounters and Star Wars. Really, that whole year.
That was the year that did it, baby. Changed everything.
Also from the Warner Archive collection, this is a great bit of kitsch. The Valley of Gwangi This is
William Blast.
yeah. This is back when they were when everything had to have dinosaurs in it. All that stop motion Ray Harryhausen stuff, and
James Francis was like a poor man's Chuck Heston.
yeah, as he was in the Planet of the Apes films, he did that too, and same thing here. You know, look, a lot of this is Journey to the Center of the Earth, and there's a lot of the dinosaur valley of this and Journey to that. So effectively, the idea here is that we are mixing westerns with dinosaur movies, and why not? You know, I mean, it's Ray Harryhausen is Ray Harryhausen. I don't really care what context you give me, as long as he gets to go to town and do his amazing stop motion stuff. And it's silly. It is, but James Franciscus, he totally works hard. He sells it. The dinosaur effects are great. It's not a great story per se, but it's a really interesting kitschy part of film history. And if you like these kinds of films, I think you'll get a real kick out of this one. It's a nice trip down memory lane.
The Vitaphone Varieties is another sort of kitschy part of film history. The Vitaphone Varieties, Warner Brothers short films from the earliest part of the film era, the jazz era, a lot of silent films, and they used to do those sort of like Vita disc things that they used to do, and then they sort of switched over to film on sound like in the 1930s and stuff like that. But these were major motion pictures, shorts, being put out. This is Volume 3, 1928 to 1929, Varieties, just a whole rack of extremely fascinating short films put out by Warner Brothers. Major directors, and most importantly, major orchestras. Some of the scores for some of the stuff is absolutely fantastic. And so this is just really sort of great historical stuff. Warner Brothers from their 16 shorts Talking Pictures collection.
And then we also have The Girl and the General, which is
Rod Steiger.
You know, The Girl and the General.
That's the Rod Steiger film that I was thinking of.
Oh, okay.
Yes, that's what it was.
So The Girl and the General is a Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer movie from the late 60s, I believe it is. And this is the period when Carlo Ponti was doing just about everything under the sun. Carlo Ponti was the great Italian producer who, of course, produced Dr. Zhivago, and he is famous at the time for being married to Sophia Loren. So that is why, for a moment, Dr. Zhivago was to have starred Sophia Loren until David Lean said, I'm not going to put your wife in the movie. She's not right for the part.
Yeah.
And we get Julie Christie. Thank goodness.
Speaking of.
But he didn't put his wife in this either. He put, the next best thing at the time, Verna Lisi, or one of the next best thing. I mean, there's so many great actresses from this period. And Verna Lisi was certainly one of the really great ones. More recently, people may know her from Queen Margot, which is the French film from, it's been about 20-some years now.
Oh, yeah.
But, she won an award at the Cannes Film Festival, and I was there that year for Queen Margot. So she is wonderful in this, along with Rod Steiger, who is also wonderful in this, again, coming over from Dr. Zhivago. Is nonetheless, The Girl and the General is almost a kind of an exploitation film concept, but done in a much more sophisticated way. And it all takes place during World War I, and Rod Steiger plays this Austrian general who captures an Italian guy, an Italian soldier, played by Umberto Orsini, and this then becomes an interesting kind of how would I put it? An interesting captor-prisoner midnight run kind of a scenario, which we're normally accustomed to in exploitation films. Is it's like, let's take two people and handcuff them and send them on the way, whether or not it's a guy who's bringing in a bounty hunter bringing in a person, or two women who've escaped and they're chained together, or it's three women who've escaped and it's Ebony, Ivory, and Jade, whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
Most of those things were written by Jonathan Demme, and they tend to kind of have certain archetypes to them. This is kind of in that same vein, but it's done in a very, very elegant way, a very sophisticated way, directed by an Italian director I'm unfamiliar with, Pasquale Festa Campanile. But it's an interesting little artifact with some very, very good actors and by a very significant producer. So that alone, I think The Girl and the General is worth checking out.
I've got Millionaires in Prison here, which interestingly enough is literally about that. Millionaires, millionaires in prison. It's kind of a neat little sort of prison gangster movie from the I don't know early '40s. I think is when this thing came out. Linda Hayes, Raymond Wahlberg, Morgan Conway. It's one of those sort of except for Jimmy Cagney's not in it. It's the kind of film that you would think that Jimmy Cagney would have been in. It's about this guy who's in prison. He kind of runs to prison. The warden thinks he runs to prison, but he really runs to prison.
Right.
And then all these millionaires, a couple of con men, a couple of more stockbroker kind of guys, do some swindly type stuff. They get sent to prison. He's got like 5 guys in prison who are millionaires, and he gets to work showing them how you actually run things and getting everybody like in shape. Yeah, obviously to position himself in order to take advantage of the fact that he knows all these millionaires when he gets out of prison. It's really kind of a neat story. Like I said, it's the kind of thing you would expect Jimmy Cagney to have been in or something like that back in the day. Neat movie. Not again a whole lot on this, but this is one of the instances where the movie itself is the thing that you want to come for. Come and check it out.
All right, we're going to get into some television now, television and foreign films, and we got some new films as well, which we'll get to a little bit later. But first, I want to make mention of a slate of films that have come out from a company that's a new company. They do DVD-R stuff primarily, entirely, exclusively. It's all DVD-R, but it's all really independent, interesting independent films. And the company is Candy Factory. Candy Factory is kind of coming on like a storm. They keeping it with relatively low overhead, doing their stuff MOD, manufacture on demand, DVD-Rs, all of them. But that enables them to put films out there to service filmmakers and projects that are otherwise, they're not going to show up on Hulu. They're not going to show up on Netflix or iTunes very easily. These are movies that are just sort of a certain level, let's say slam dancey, and they're really interesting, and some of them are worth recommending. So particularly to our listeners, but I'm going to run through them real quickly. The first one here is The Passing Season, which is a very, very short film. It's 67 minutes long. But it's an interesting little independent movie about a guy whose hockey career has ended and he goes home, and how that forces him to reevaluate his life. That's a sharp little movie. We've also got one called The Babymooners, which was an interesting little independent film last year, made the circuit, and it's about basically a woman who tries to create a video letter for her unborn son, based on old Woody Allen movies, and it's an interesting way of making a cool independent film. Only 75 minutes long, but a sharp idea, and if you know the Woody Allen movies in question, you'll really, really get a kick out of it. Also, a lot of little independent film festivals. We're fortunate to see Children of the Mountain. This showed up at the 2016 Tribeca Film Festival and won an award for Best New Narrative Director, and very, very deservedly so. The director is Priscilla Anani, and it is an extraordinary story of a mother's love for a child that is born with a particular disability, and then the disabilities start to compound, and life becomes harder and harder. And it's very sensitively made for very little money. Really, really a good film, and I hope somebody gives her a big, giant budget very, very soon to do something else that's pretty awesome. Road to the Well, I liked a little bit less. This showed in Dances with Films, which is something that kind of we get here in L.A. And does that tour? Does Dances with Films go to other cities?
Yeah, it definitely does, because I know it's been to San Francisco for sure. Yeah.
Right. It's kind of this is a story of a couple of old friends. One of them's a drifter. Shot very, very nicely. Otherwise, kind of a little bit slight and a little overlong. Could have been shorter, but still, some talent here. The director is John Kavak or Chavak, not sure how you pronounce it. And then we also have Clandestine. This one didn't really work for me too well. It's got some. This has more names in it than some of these other films have. But Tom Sizemore most notably, and Tom Sizemore's been making a lot of junk lately. Kind of needs to reinvent himself.
Again.
Yeah, he really does. Seriously, again. Anyway, movies that kind of wallow in a certain crime milieu, narcotics milieu. This is one of them. Not one of the best, but it's out there. King of New Orleans. About a taxi driver who is an awful lot like the Robert De Niro taxi driver in some respects. The only thing that makes this a little bit different is how it kind of ties in with Hurricane Katrina. Some interesting stuff here as well. This is mercifully short, 81 minutes, more of an experimental thing than some of the others. And then the other films, Stevie D, which is about an actor in California. I can do with a lot less of those. Split, which was a really, really interesting. This is really kind of fascinating art direction in this thing. This is about a stripper who becomes obsessed with masks. And I don't really know where to go in telling you any more about that, but it has fascinating art direction and some really, really interesting filmmaking in it. It's called Split. That also did the festival route. And then Americana, which is about a film editor who comes out of retirement, who has a lot of personal issues, and he's coming out of retirement to finish a film called Americana. And there's a whole kind of soap opera backstory to the effort. This is a not so successful but noble attempt at doing a certain kind of a thriller. And then the last one is Lonely Boys, which is just a really an interesting look at friendship and a couple of interesting guys in Brooklyn who have a backstory and who have certain life issues. And there's a little Broadway backstory to it that I kind of wish wasn't there, but nonetheless, also very, very interesting. So you can check any of those out. You can look for those online. They are manufactured on demand, and the company is Candy Factory, and they are going to continue to make some really, really interesting acquisitions. So I look forward to the little discoveries that they pluck out of the American festival circuit.
Yeah. I really appreciate those films. I really, really do. Can we bounce over to some of the?
The foreign. You want to do foreign?
Yeah. Well, because it's Cinema Paradiso, I just want to talk about
Let's
that.
do it. Let's do it.
Really what I want to talk about. For this is 1988. For some reason in my mind, this film was a little bit later, about 1990 or so, but it's not. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's 1990. An absolutely beautiful film about a guy who's reflecting back on his childhood as going to the theater and hanging out with the old projectionists.
Yeah, played by Philippe Noiret, who's just wonderful.
Beautiful, beautiful stuff. But 1988, my mind just didn't have this film quite that old, but I guess that's more about me than this, the movie.
Well, famously, and we should point out too, this is one of the movies from the Miramax library. This has been licensed.
The Miramax library.
The Miramax library, which nobody's doing anything with right now. This was licensed for release from the Miramax library by the people at Arrow Academy. And they really went to town. They put just gobs and gobs of special features on it, and the transfer is beautiful. But it's nice that even though nobody at Miramax is doing anything with the library, others are going to them and saying, if you're not going to do anything with it, would you let us do something with it?
Yeah. And of course, that's Harvey and Bob don't control that library, or do Harvey and Bob control the library? No. And that's back over to Disney when Disney.
They left the library with Disney, and then Disney sold it to the highest bidder, and it bounced around, and it's been a mess ever since. I mean, I still say eventually the Weinsteins will have it back because nobody else knows what to do with it.
Yeah, it's like Michael Jackson owning all those Beatles songs.
There you go.
A while. It's just anyway, this is an extraordinary movie, newly restored from the original camera negative. And presented in two versions here, a 124-minute theatrical version and a 174-minute director's cut, which I have not seen.
Which is not as good.
Okay.
Amazingly. That's when Harvey developed that sense that he knew more than filmmakers knew about, fixing films. And very often he's correct, He was right that movie at 3 hours is not the best of Giuseppe Tornatore, who is a very talented director, but not always as objective about his own work as he could be.
Mm-hmm.
Harvey
overly nostalgic.
Harvey oversaw the cutting of that thing down to size, and the shorter film is better, I gotta say.
The Criterion folks, Michelangelo Antonioni's Blow Up.
Oh.
This is a nice thick villain heavy box. You can feel the weight of it in your hand as Blu-ray.
Yeah, it's good. It's a great transfer too. This is the Antonioni film everybody knows.
Yeah, This is the Antonioni. A little bit shorter, but nevertheless, this is the one everybody knows. I like the Passenger.
Jack Passenger. Yeah. And I'm big on La Ventura, just because it's completely obscure and pointless.
Yeah, about nothing. They just sort of stand around wandering, and they each slowly sort of disappear. It's just hysterically wonderful. Again, this is one that's just packed with stuff.
It is.
Everything you can possibly think of. is on this film, this 4K digital transfer here. All kinds of behind the scenes stuff, documentary stuff, archival interviews with Antonioni and David Higgins and Jane Birkin, and trailers and a booklet, and just, yeah, like I said, the weight of the box. Sometimes you know it's a good when you can just feel the weight.
Yep.
And it's right there.
It's right there. And let's talk about some really, really cool martial arts stuff, because we got some giveaways here. We got 2 giveaways courtesy of WellGo. Everybody can just shoot us emails at gods@digigods.com. Hit us up with gods@digigods.com, and as long as we get the email. Gosh, my brain's not working today. As long as we get the email by end of day on Friday the 14th, that's Friday the 14th, as long as it's date stamped for that day, you will be in the running, and we will make a decision that weekend and randomly choose people who win any of these. The 2 films are 3 and Swordmaster. Now, I'm going to talk about Swordmaster first. Swordmaster is pretty great. This is produced by Choi Hak, of course, who has done many, many great films, produced all of John Woo's early films, made a lot of his own great films, The Blade, Butterfly Lovers, on and on and on and on, and directed Better Tomorrow 3. So Choi Hak, legendary figure, even did his, Van Damme film over here and then went back. And the director is Derek Yee, who is his own kind of amazing. And those two together have combined to make a really great old-school swordplay wuxia film like they made in the 1990s. This is not one of the more recent Chinese films. This feels like the stuff that I really grew to love in the 1990s, late 1980s, even kind of with a one foot in the old Shaw Brothers era that inspired all of it. It's a fantastically well choreographed, elegant, beautiful, and poetic epic about a swordsman who is trying to. He's a little bit like a Ronin, right? He's a loner, and he's trying to find his place in the world. It's the best way that I can not give away any of the really, really cool aspects of this. There's a bit of dash of Zatoichi and the one-armed swordsman to him. All of those legendary kind of loner figures, which we also find obviously in American westerns and spaghetti westerns and samurai films as well. But he has a past, and it's following him around, and he has a future, and it's going to be very, very difficult. And fill in the blanks, lots of amazing action. It's really, really great. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 copies of that we're going to be able to give away. Hit us with gods@digigods.com and put Swordmaster in the title. Just one word, Swordmaster, and you will be in the running for Swordmaster. The other film, for which we also have 5 copies, is 3, Three. And this is a Johnny To film. Johnny To is just he's just become the man. When John Woo is no longer making gangster films, Johnny Woo is hitting his stride. Johnny To. Johnny To started making kind of run-of-the-mill martial arts films, Heroic Trio, and a lot of other really great things that they're still terrific, but they're not his style. And then he kind of moved into making his own particular brand of gangster movies, and this is just the latest of so many good ones. Exiled was amazing. Drug War was amazing. And this is, still in the same vein. I'm not going to say it's better or more amazing or less amazing than any of those, but it is a little bit different, and it is so violent, and yet it's so interesting. The character politics between these 3 actors is so interesting. Louis Koo, Vicky Zhao, and Wallace Chung are the 3 in 3. And what an amazing tour de force between all 3 of those actors. So I will tell you nothing about the plot of this one, because it really, really is. You got to walk in. You just got to know this is a great Johnny To movie. You jump in with all 3 feet, especially Louis Koo, who's a fantastic actor. Anyone who watches Asian films on a regular basis knows how amazing he is. And so send us an email with the word 3, Three. Don't spell it any funky way. Send that to gods@digigods.com. As long as we get the email by the 14th. You will be in the running, and we'll pick winners for that and Swordmaster over the weekend.
Can we do a couple of more?
Yeah.
A couple more forms. Toni Erdmann is just the one that I want to do real quick. Which, by the way, did you know that Jack Nicholson?
I know.
Yeah, and Kirsten Wiig are going to do this.
Have you and I talked about this movie?
I I don't think we have. All right. So did it win? It won, right?
No,
it did not win. It was nominated.
It was nominated
For best foreign picture for the
yeah.
Academy Award. Long, a very, very, very long German sort of
3
dark
hours. 3 hours long.
comedy. That frankly you don't really understand what the hell's going on in this movie till the end of the first hour.
Did you get there at the end of the first hour? Did you? Okay.
And it's about this guy.
I'll let you do your thing, and then I'm gonna.
It's very simple. It's very simple. It's this guy. He's an oddball character anyway, but he has a daughter. His daughter, he hasn't seen her in a while. She's a sort of slick corporate type. His daughter with a high-powered job, and she has to engage with the father. Anyway, they don't get along. So he creates this sort of alter ego character called Toni Erdmann, who's a life coach. Is that what he's supposed to be? A life coach?
Yeah, I guess.
I think, right? Anyway, what he's doing is fucking with his daughter for this because he wants to reconnect with his daughter. Now, this gets funny eventually, but it's 3 hours long, and if you don't hang around for most of the 3 hours, you never will get to the funny. It's mostly irritating, is what it is.
I never got to the funny, and it's still irritating.
And it's gonna. I do not believe for 1 second that Jack Nicholson and Kirsten Wiig are gonna make a 3 hour.
No,
they're not gonna do that.
No.
I just don't believe it.
No.
So we shall see.
I hate this movie. I hate it with a passion. I hate everything about it. I can't stand it. I started harassing most of our LAFCA colleagues.
A lot of them love it.
A lot of them came out of Cannes. Look, I read their reviews, especially Justin and Peter. There are a lot of people who saw it at Cannes and came out loving it, and I've been trolling them for the last 3 months over their love of this movie, which I just think is insufferably bad. Look, okay, it's a German comedy.
You're already in trouble.
Look, I'm half German. I can tell you more than anyone else. I mean, half my family is German. I know these people. We are not funny people. Funny is not what we do. We don't make the world laugh. This is not a great German trait. There are some good German comedies. There are a few.
Sure.
Stank is one of my favorites, and that Zucker movie. There's a few, but generally speaking, we're not a funny people. So here's my deal with this movie. This feels like somebody who saw a lot of Jerry Lewis movies and had no idea why they were funny. This is basically the same dynamic as the Disorderly Orderly. Okay, the Disorderly Orderly, the dynamic between Jerry Lewis, who is an orderly that just makes a wreck of everything, and what's her name? The blonde who played the part in Star Trek: The Menagerie. The actress, I always forget her name.
Oh, I forget her name.
So anyway, she's there and she's miserable and she's just angry at life and suicidal because a guy jilted her. And Jerry makes it his job that the doctors may save her life, but he's going to save her soul. And so Jerry eventually helps her reconnect to life. In about 85 very funny Frank Tashlin directed minutes that also include some slapstick and a great chase scene where there's a guy on a gurney going down a hill and the ambulances are chasing him, and it's a riot. It's a stone cold riot. And there's a lady with leaky kidneys, and it's funny and it's touching and it's humane, and it's 85 minutes long. This damn thing is twice as long. The guy's not funny, and he puts on Nutty Professor teeth, and that's supposed to make me laugh. And then at the end, there's like there's the thing that everybody does that comes out of nowhere.
He's a really big guy, and it involves a lot of naked. It's a good kind of naked.
It comes out of left field. It's pointless. I hate this movie. I hate it so much. It's unbelievable how much I hate this movie. It's unbelievable. But everyone else loves it, and it came out of Cannes, and
it has a following,
big crazy head of steam. And Maren Ade is, who directed it, is now all the rage again. So there we go. There we have it.
The Mafia Only Kills in Summer, which is sort of a neat little movie. It's sort of a black comedy about the sort of Sicilian mafia, and I like this movie actually quite a lot because what it does is it blows up all of the sort of dark, sort of Godfather-based ideas about the mafia being men of honor and all of this kind of stuff, and flips all of that on its head. And sort of makes the sort of anti-mafia people the heroes again.
Yeah.
Again, in a sort of a wacky, dark comedy sort of way from Icarus Films home video. Fun, I think. Anyway, not a whole lot on it though. Not a whole lot on it.
All right, is that it for our foreign?
You want to do it?
Let's see. Oh yeah, no, we got a couple other little foreign films here. I can dig into.
Fragments of Love.
Yeah, Fragments of Love is a good film. This is from Strand, directed by Fernando Vallejo.
Fernando Vallejo.
Brando Vallejo. Yeah, Fragments of Love, good solid Strand acquisition. Strand is one of the few little indie distributors that really kind of continues to do what they used to do, and they've never really budged. And this is kind of a weird little. It's like it's romantic, it's erotic, it's a little bit of a thriller, a little bit of a psychological head trip, but ultimately it's like Almodovar light.
Yeah.
Is that a good way of putting it? Maybe.
Yeah.
It's a little bit of Almodovar light. But yeah, the idea here is that there's this composer named Rodrigo who is obsessed with a certain woman, and it is the story of where their relationship goes and vis-a-vis how it connects to her sexual past. And there's a lot of Almodovar in there, and not in a bad way.
No, little hypnotism.
Yeah, and then La Novia, The Bride. This was a Spanish film, as in not Spanish language, but Spain, the country, Spanish film that was a huge hit in Spain. It never really caught fire here for some reason, but it's adapted, and I guess that's because it's adapted from a very, very famous Spanish stage play, which nobody really knows outside of Spain. Nonetheless, there is a really, really cool kind of Shakespearean love triangle going on here. Doomed love, forbidden love. It's a very, very interesting film, very nicely put together, and that is also a release from Strand. So two very, very cool little Spanish language films from Strand.
Where do we go?
Okay, let's do TV.
Do some TV?
Let's do some TV.
I never cared for the medium, except for the fact that it was created by Glenn Gordon Caron.
Yeah.
Who created Moonlighting, and what are you going to do? The guy who created Moonlighting is always going to be kind of okay with me.
I liked Medium. Patricia Arquette had a good run with this. She won the Emmy for Best Actress a couple of times, I think.
Yeah.
So 35 discs, the complete series, 128 episodes. I'm kind of amazed this hasn't been out before, but here we go. We have Medium, the complete series, out from Paramount. The show started off kind of slowly, and it's a little bit of a cheat when you have a show about a medium, because you can kind of have her psychically see whatever you need to get your way through whatever story.
This was one of the problems that I had with it,
and I understand that it's as opposed to detectives who have a handicap that like, let's say you're like Monk. Right,
so that was Monk or Ironside,
right? You're in a wheelchair, or you're OCD, and that's that can be a shtick at the same time. But at least there's a hurdle you have to clear to do detective work. Here, you just kind of can. But that said, I thought that getting inside her head was very often really an interesting place to be. So they kind of found a back door to it that made it acceptable.
She's a suburban housewife. She has these dreams where dead people, try to help her. And my thing was, how come the dead people just don't say, "Hey, my husband did it. His name's Bob. He lives at 328." Yeah, I mean, all of this stuff. Who killed you? Yeah. Bobby did it. Yeah. All right, I'm going to see if we can figure out a way.
It's true. It's true. And that's probably why it has 128 episodes and not 228, but nonetheless.
Way more than I ever made. Yeah. Veep. I know that Veep is a gigantic... Julia
Louis-Dreyfus. Yeah.
Veep. It's a very popular show. It's into its 6th season.
Yeah. I never thought it would last that long.
And it's funny, I've only watched it sporadically, but I watched it. You know why I only watched it sporadically? It's because she did a series just before Veep. This is the 5th season out here, HBO original series, all kinds of neat stuff on this thing.
Yeah.
She did a series called I think it was called The New Life of Old Christine or something like that.
Oh, yeah. That was her Seinfeld follow-up.
Exactly. It was absolutely hysterically funny. Lasted 23 seconds. And then was just gone. And then bang, Veep, and it comes along. And this is very sharp. I heard she's playing the vice president. I think by the 5th season, she's the president.
Yeah.
Maybe that's this year or whatever. But 3 Emmy Awards that she's won Best Original Comedy Series for this. Can't be mad about that. Julia Louis-Dreyfus, Veep.
And we've got the best of Tim Conway. This is from the 50th anniversary of the Carol Burnett show. And it is, I really recommend to most people just get every Carol Burnett show disc you can. Don't get a best of. Don't get Carol's favorites. Don't get Harvey Korman's fantasy. Don't get any of those. Just get the whole thing, because there are gems in every episode. There's not a bad moment in a Carol Burnett show sketch.
I was about to say it. You beat me to it. There's no. You know how sometimes we talk about Saturday Night Live.
Yeah.
And I like Saturday Night Live just fine. It's been better for the last few years.
But
you have some dead moments in Saturday Night Live.
You get about 3 good bits a show if you're lucky.
And everything goes on too long.
Yeah.
Carol Burnett's show, this is not true ever about any moment in the Carol Burnett show.
The reason that Eric Idle has not been asked back to host Saturday Night Live is because he went on Conan some years ago and said, well, you know what they say about the difference between Saturday Night Live and life. And Conan says, no, what do they say? He goes, Saturday Night Live sketch. Life eventually ends. That was the joke, and that's why Eric Idle's not been asked back. But anyway, yeah, Tim. But if you can only, if you're trying to make the rent and you don't have a lot of money, you can do no wrong by getting the best of Tim Conway. What he did, it is just comedy genius, and the fact that he. And when they talk about the show, a lot of times nobody really knew what Tim Conway was going to do.
Yeah.
They would go for a week doing all rehearsal, but they knew that when tape time came, he'd pull something else out of the bag. There was something, the other shoe was always going to drop, and there was always going to be something that he would do that was not in rehearsal, that was completely unexpected. And it pulled Harvey Korman's cord every single time. He just couldn't keep it together.
The wonderful thing about the Carol Burnett show in general, but certainly those Tim Conway bits on the Carol Burnett show, you knew that fourth wall was done.
It's true.
They were going to. Sometimes Harvey would look right at the camera.
Yeah.
And just say, "I'm sorry, people.
Just can't control it.
I can't help myself.
Can't hold it in."
Tim Conway, don't make him like him anymore. Archer, the complete 7th season.
I'm trying to find an interesting angle on this show. I still don't get it.
I get it. All the sexy this, that, and the other thing, and the Archer sort of, goofy Bond guy. But I've never been a big sort of Archer fan.
Yeah.
Per se, a little too on the nose for me.
Yeah.
But I dig some of the voices that sort of come out of that. Anyway. This one, Archer reviews Bond. Archer reading live on the boat. I don't know what any of that stuff means, but I suppose if you're a fan of Archer, what you're going to want to get is the 7th season, just because you're a fan of Archer. So there you go.
All right, we got a few British TV things to talk about, and all of them worthwhile. And then we will wrap the show up probably with new movies. I think that'll probably take us right to the end. A couple of great ones from Acorn and RLJ. The first one is Wentworth Season 2. Which has been compared in many respects to Orange is the New Black. I don't really see it. Orange is the New Black is much funnier and kind of means to be a much more offbeat. Wentworth is, and we put this under Brit TV because again we're talking about the Commonwealth. This is an Australian drama, and it's been very, very popular in Australia, at least from what I understand. And it is, it's basically a women's prison drama, and it's gritty and it's smart and it's well acted and it's solid. So if you want to see something that's, I guess, a little bit like Orange is the New Black, but more serious, I would go. I would say check out Wentworth, but definitely check out season 1 first. Don't dive right into season 2 because there's a lot of stuff that you won't necessarily understand. Series 5 of Suspects is just as good as the first 4. Another really, really great police drama. And this one deals specifically with, I don't know how much I want to give away of this. No, I'm not gonna give this story away. This is kind of a Law and Order type show. But it is what's interesting about Suspects is it's improvised. It's primarily a non-scripted show, which gives it a sort of a fascinating urgency and dynamic to it. But there's a very, very particular aspect to Series 5 that is really, really powerful. And I'm not going to say anything about it. I'm just going to say if you like the first 4 seasons, you should definitely check it out. And moving on, because I'm saving the best for last here, the Secrets of the Six Wives. This is a kind of an interesting public television-like examination of the House of Tudor and Henry VIII and his wives, and it's It's a little too sort of docudrama-like for me. I could do with something that's a little bit more straight, but it's okay. It's a little gimmicky. It's hosted by historian Lucy Worsley, and she's very smart and she knows her stuff and really kind of covers all the bases. But the stylistic approach to it is a little bit off-putting. And then lastly, the one I want to talk about for a minute. This was on television. This was broadcast on PBS, and now it is on Blu-ray. It's a little bit grungy in its broadcast, but it is extraordinary on Blu-ray, and I don't know why the difference. I think the broadcast should have at least been look as good as the Blu-ray. From PBS on Blu-ray, To Walk Invisible, The Bronte Sisters. This is part of Masterpiece here. Did you see this, Tim? Did you see To Walk Invisible?
No, I did not see that.
Anybody who's listened to this show for a period of time knows that I have a certain obsession with the Bronte family. Charlotte, Emily, and Anne, the three famous Yorkshire sisters who became literary giants, all of them, and they're very, they lost their mother at an early age. There were two older sisters who died. Their brother was an alcoholic and a
wonderful painter, though.
A tremendous painter. Yeah, I mean the famous painting of the three of them was painted by him.
Missing, yeah.
And of course, I did the audio commentary for the Cohen Blu-ray of Les Sœurs Brontë, the André Téchiné film, and that was a wonderful experience for me. I did that with a Bronte scholar from Harvard, who was I just sat and listened to her. She was tremendous. So here's the thing with To Walk Invisible.
Wait a minute. Is that the one with Jonathan Pryce playing their father?
This is, yes.
That is?
Yes, To Walk Invisible.
I have seen that. Was that called that on American PBS?
Yes.
It wasn't called The Bronte Sisters?
No, it was just To Walk Invisible. This is just a few weeks ago.
A few weeks ago?
Yeah.
I have seen this.
Yes.
Okay, never mind. Go on.
This is tremendous. I mean, it's really great.
For whatever reason in my mind, it was called The Bronte Sisters.
No, it's To Walk Invisible.
Because there was a big fight between the three of them, because not all three of them wanted. Emily's
a hothead.
Yeah. That got ugly.
They wrote their novels originally under pseudonyms, male pseudonyms. Mm-hmm. So that they'd be able to get them published, and so that they wouldn't sort of humiliate their father, who was a very, stern. Well, not a.
He wasn't
stern.
Particularly stern,
but he was a very conservative man. Yeah. We should say he's a very conservative minister.
Outlived all of them.
He did, which is the horrible tragedy. Yeah. But it's such an amazing story. But there are certain beats to the Bronte story that have never been dramatized particularly well, even by the Téchiné film, which of course does it all in French, so you don't hear the accents. But this film hits those beats beautifully, and there's a couple of the reveals later on. You know what I'm saying? And that's why I asked you. I want to make sure because I didn't want to give it away. But there's a moment with a couple of guys in London. That whole I was in tears. It was so beautifully executed. It is so literally written. I mean, it is really, really just pristine and perfect,
and powerfully acted. I'm sure that the British audiences know those actresses.
Absolutely, all three
Jonathan Pryce, obviously, but American audiences might not know those faces all that well. No, it doesn't make any difference. They're so strong.
Doesn't make any difference, and the actor who plays their brother Branwell just really kills it. And that was what I wasn't sure of, because the Branwell was such a screw up. I mean, such a hopeless screw-up, a womanizer and an alcoholic and, in debt. And he just dragged the family down. He was such a burden to his sisters and to his father.
What I loved about him, he loved his sisters.
He did. And see, that's the thing. It's so hard to portray someone with so many vices.
Particularly a guy from that era. Who could have been very abusive if he wanted to.
But with so many vices and yet make them sympathetic. Yeah. And they're able to do that. And that is no small task.
And they loved their brother.
They did.
Yeah, he was not just something, he just couldn't stop drinking.
So that's To Walk Invisible, the Bronte sisters. Absolutely wonderful. For my money, that's the quintessential telling of the Bronte story to date. Really beautiful.
Emily only wrote the one book, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, Emily only wrote Wuthering Heights.
I can fabulate.
Wuthering Heights, but a lot of great poetry, a lot of amazing poetry, really extraordinary poetry. And Anne wrote 2 novels, and Charlotte wrote, I think, 4.
Yeah, and a lot of those epistolary letters, those wonderful letters. The movies?
Yeah, movies. Let's hit the new ones.
The new movies. Lion, of course, Dev Patel, Mara Rooney. Nicole Kidman nominated for Best Supporting Actress Academy Award there. Look, when I saw this movie, as it was making its run, and we saw it. I saw it in theaters, and I was like, okay. It opened so strong.
Yeah.
That first quarter of the movie, which does not involve any of the people that I just mentioned.
The little kid, Sonny.
The little boy
Yeah.
is the anchor of that first, probably third, maybe even the first whole act of that movie is that little boy.
And I should point out that little boy, Sonny, was discovered by a very close friend of ours who put him in his film first.
Oh, which was the
Tabrez Noorani.
The elephant.
No, no, it hasn't come out yet. Tabrez Noorani found him and put Sonny briefly in his movie Love, Sonia, which and Love, Sonia is, which I'm not at liberty to say whether I've seen it or not. But if I had seen it, I would say I would probably, if I had seen it, I would say that it's pretty damn awesome. But that being said, that was Sonny's premiere, and then he went on to do Lion, which of course has come out first.
An extraordinary find, and I hope
he's amazing.
I hope that he actually has a career there. This is and then there are these other movements in the movie, a sort of middle movement that takes place in I guess it's Australia, where he ends up as Dev Patel's character with Nicole Kidman as his mother. And that's a perfectly sort of affable drama there. And then we have another part of the movie that takes place where it all sort of culminates with him finding his way home. I don't know. It's just a tough thing when the second and third act of a film are not nearly as strong as the first.
I hear you.
And I had my fingers crossed that it would get, but it just never gets as strong as it was in that first act again. Anyway, this special features deleted scenes, behind the scenes gallery, and a performance of the sort of original song from the film.
Yeah.
So decent stuff.
All right, and then I got a couple of Blu-rays here that I think are okay. The first one is, I mean, when you give a movie a title like The Bye Bye Man. Anything, look, here's the thing. Any movie that has as its title The Something Man, it's usually going to be a horror film.
Yeah.
If the isn't if the the isn't there, then it's going to be something like Superman, Batman. Once you put a the in it, it's a horror film.
It's a horror film.
Yeah, the walking man, the thin man, the thin man is not.
The thing is always
it's always creepy. So anyway, the Bye Bye Man is a guy. It's a guy with Freddy Krueger hands in a hoodie. I don't know. It is what it is. It's one of those movies, and they're all kind of the same. And this one is stylistic, and it means to be more a resume film, I think, than anything else. Carrie-Anne Moss is very, very good in it. She's good in everything. She's one of the best things in Iron Fist right now, to be honest.
Yeah.
I never get sick of Carrie-Anne Moss, but everybody else in this is just kind of treading water and going through the motions. Is it scary? Yeah, sure, I guess. I mean, I'm jaded. I sort of saw the scares coming, and it's stylish and creepy, but whatever.
Yeah.
And then we got War on Everyone. I was surprised this didn't really get a theatrical release. This isn't bad. Michael Pena, fantastic actor, not getting a lot of good reviews right now in Chips, which people are just
Chips is not getting a lot of good reviews. So
but he's with Alexander Skarsgård, two really fine actors in War on Everyone. And they play a couple of really dirty cops, bad cops, who are trying to shake down everybody. They're kind of just basically scam artists, and they wind up kind of shaking down the wrong people, and their whole scam comes back to bite them. It's really about watching these two actors work. If you saw Michael Pena in End of Watch, where he's with
Jake.
Jake Gyllenhaal.
Jake Gyllenhaal, yeah.
They are tremendous in that.
Outstanding.
Absolutely amazing. That is a great film, and their chemistry is terrific.
Movie, contemporary LA cop.
This is kind of like the flip on that a little bit. But Pena is so good in these particular movies, except for Chips. But he's so good in these. He kills it here. He's really, really good. It's a very different role for him. And Skarsgård, really underrated actor too. Very, very good. Both of these films that I just mentioned have Ultraviolet on them, The Bye Bye Man and War on Everyone. They're Blu-ray, DVD, and Ultraviolet combo sets.
Band of Robbers, I'll knock out real quick. This is a sort of retelling of the Tom and Huck story, the sort of Mark Twain Tom and Huck story. Just resets it in a more modern setting, and they go after that money. The adventures, they're a little bit more blue, a little meaner, a little tougher, but a lot of the same stuff actually happens, and all the characters have the same names. So you know what? Fine. That's fine. Not a lot on this. Film Rise from Gravitas there.
Yep.
Claire in Motion is actually quite a good little movie though, that I liked a lot. So this is about a woman family, husband, the whole shebang. Everything's all nice,
Yep.
very, very, very good. The husband goes missing.
Ooh.
Naturally, she goes into motion to try to figure out what happened to her husband. What starts to be revealed are all kinds of things that were part and parcel of her life that she did not know about. So all of that family and all of that stuff just gets chipped away. It's actually very riveting. I liked it quite a lot. Special features here, a few deleted scenes. That's all you're gonna get.
All righty. And we got a bit of time left, so you know what? I'm gonna roll through some exploitation titles. We got a lot of really interesting old and new cult movie stuff here. So if you are into trash cinema, boy, do I have some treats for you. I love good trash, and this is from Troma, as much good trash is.
Yes, it is.
B.C. Butcher. Directed by a director by the name of Kansas Bowling. Now, I'm going to take a shot here. I'm going to take a wild stab and guess that no one in the history of planet Earth really has the name Kansas Bowling. Tim, do you think? Do you think there's a little baby?
Not even if you're actually from Kansas.
No. So Kansas Bowling is a pseudonym. This is an absolute riot. It's kind of like a caveman cannibal. I don't even know where to go. This is every exploitation film just thrown into one. It's ridiculous. The only thing I can say is there's a quote on the cover of this from this guy named Thomas Becker, who writes for Beautiful Bodies. I don't know who Becker is. I don't know what Beautiful Bodies is, but this is the best pull quote you could possibly put on a movie like this. It describes everything. He says, "It's as if Russ Meyer directed The Monkees." That's it. That's all you got to know.
I'll tell you this, that guy makes a movie every 15 minutes.
It's really funny.
So
Yeah.
if you don't like that one, he's making another one for you right
There
now.
you go. Really funny. From Severin is kind of a giallo-y thing by Franco E. Prosperi called Wild Beasts. Yeah, it's okay. It's fine. Prosperi is one of these guys who sort of paved a path with giallo-type films dealing with animals attacking people. Sort of his thing, right? So this is more of that. That's what he does. He's the feral animal thing. And it's fine. It's kind of a subgenre or a subgenre of a subgenre. Came in 1983, so it's a little bit on the tail end of but it's when Fulci is still doing some stuff, and Dario Argento's in his prime. So whatever. This movie is great trash. This is fantastic trash. Love Camp 7, man. It's a Blue Underground movie. Blue Underground really only does really great stuff. Now, this is don't let this offend you. It shouldn't be offensive. This is designed to be just really, really great trash, but it's also designed to have a little bit of a statement to it. And this was the first film of what became a genre in the 70s that were all about sadistic Nazis, and they were all exploitation films that were sort of had a Third Reich framework to them.
Some of the Nazis would be really hot,
and they called them Nazis. Nazi-sploitation, I believe, was the actual term at the time. Doesn't really trip off the tongue very easily, but nonetheless, it is a particular genre. Love Camp 7 is the one that started it. Don't be offended by it. Just be aware that this was a genre that existed, and it's designed to be super trashy. It's supposed to be offensive, so therefore you are doing yourself and the filmmakers a service by not letting it offend you. Also from Troma is a movie with a title that tells you absolutely everything you need to know. Honky Holocaust. That's it. Sometimes I think they just make up the titles first and then just shoot something.
Those guys are so from the 70s. Everything about it is just
Lloyd Kaufman's the great. He does an intro on this thing. It's just so funny. There's the best thing about Honky Holocaust, which is, I mean, I'm not going to give you a story. It's pointless.
What's funny is that film, the word Holocaust is still, that can't possibly offend you.
No, it's just trash. It's just great through. But the best part of this is an extra on here. It's a behind the scenes featurette. They call it a honkumentary. It's the greatest. It's fantastic.
Oh, man.
The Orphan Killer. This is from Real Gore Releasing, directed by Matt Farnsworth, who apparently specializes in this kind of stuff. This is more than I particularly can take. This really gets into the muck with slasher films. Not fun, not my kind of movie. But if you like the hardcore gore, if you like the stuff that really goes above and beyond, this is mutilation, torture porn, and all that stuff. This will be right down your alley. Could not get through more than just a few minutes of it. Not my style, but has an audience.
Yeah.
And Murder Lust from Intervision. This is only on DVD. This is a 1986 film. A little bit late for this particular kind of film, but it's a serial killer movie. It's low budget, not particularly good, but it has a certain kitsch to it, a certain period kitsch that some people will enjoy if you just like the genre, generally speaking. From Severin, a Blu-ray of Drive-In Massacre, which is kind of one of the legendary 70s films of this. I mean, of the Massacre films that had Massacre in the title and actually have a massacre. Everything post Herschel Gordon Lewis. There's only a few that sort of are considered legendary, and Drive-In Massacre is one of them. Nothing particularly enjoyable in this film. It just you watch it purely for the sleaze factor.
Yeah.
It was, and the fact that it feels like 1970s.
Representative of the genre.
What's weird is this was the year before Star Wars, and this is the same year as Rocky.
Yeah,
that always feels weird to me because this really belongs in the late 60s. It just
part of what Tarantino would have called a Roadhouse movie.
Yeah, total Roadhouse movie. Anyway, the director, Stu Siegel, came back and did a commentary for it, and it's actually way better than the movie. It is. I wouldn't even watch the movie. I just listened to the commentary, turn the picture off. Joe Bullitt is a really interesting movie. Joe Bullitt is a South African exploitation film.
Yeah, in the sort of black exploitation genre.
Yeah. So it's an exploitation film that is basically an anti-apartheid statement film, which is interesting. It's exploitation because it is designed specifically for the township audiences, for audiences outside of South Africa. It's designed really to not be too highbrow, but to specifically hit that lowbrow emotional trigger. And it does a really good job of it. It does much in many ways. I would almost compare this to Sweet Sweetback, even though Sweet Sweetback's a much better film.
Yeah,
it's going for the same jugular.
Or even the Harder They Fall, that sort of Jimmy
exactly
Cliff thing.
There you go. Yeah. Harder They Fall. It's in that same vein. Really interesting movie, and I especially love the fact that it's about soccer.
Yeah,
which is just awesome for me too. So double bonus. It's like South African blaxploitation with a statement and soccer. Love it. Absolutely super cool. Joe Bullitt, and that is from the Film Detective, who keeps digging up really interesting stuff.
Did you want to mention Worlds Apart before?
Let's talk about Worlds Apart. I'll let you.
Just because J.K. is in it.
Go for it.
And the thing that I think J.K. Simmons is in it. It's a Greek film. Done by the director of What If, which is another Greek film that's a very popular film. And this is a very popular film in Greece. Made a whole lot of money. The reason why it's interesting is it's sort of a multi-layered, multi-story thing.
Yeah.
A roaming. It's a contemporary film, so all of the troubles of Greece are played out in this film. All of the stuff to do with the bankruptcies and the immigrants and all of that stuff that's going on is all in this film. They all lap over each other in that sort of Crash kind of way. Remember Crash?
Yep.
That kind of way. Well, that's what's going on in this film. It's actually sort of moving, and it's a neat little contemporary lesson about current Greek history.
Fantastic. All right, and then we got just let me pack a couple more of these into the end just to get through some of this.
There is a featurette in the director's interview on that. Worlds Apart is the name of that movie, by the way.
All right, so here's another good piece of trash from Synapse. This is a I don't even know how to say this on the show. We're getting awfully loose with the language on the show. So this is from Synapse Films. This is the violent. I'll do it the English way. The violent shite collection. It's just too funny. It's the 5-film collector's shitition. I'll do it that way.
I love it.
Anyway, I was completely unfamiliar with these films. Violent, SH. And then Violent SH2, and then 3 and 4 and 5. The last one is a zombie film.
That's not violent.
Yeah, exactly. So I was not even familiar with this series of films. It's just completely bizarre. But they're not. I mean, the first one's from 1989, and the other two are from the mid to late 90s. And then the last one is 2010. The zombie one is from the 90s. So I'm not quite sure. Anyway, the order of these things, forget about the order. Here's the deal. The original movie it's a slasher film. It's just a straight up slasher film, and they threw a really, really controversial title on it, obviously to set it apart from everything else that was going on in the late '80s when slasher films and we were on the edge of losing.
Of course, they had a different title in Germany.
And we're on the verge of something too, because we're about to get Best Picture winner in a couple of years with Silence of the Lambs, which sort of erases the whole genre from the exploitation realm, and it elevates it to, and then we get Seven, and suddenly it becomes it's something that you can do at an A level instead of at a D- level. But anyway, there's nothing particularly good about these movies, but it's kind of a legendary trilogy, 4 films, 5 films altogether, however it all fits together. I will confess, I didn't watch all 5 of them. Nothing could pay me to watch all 5 of these. I'm just not going to do it.
You got to be into it. You got to be
into it.
Yeah.
And then the very, very last thing I will make mention of is Return of Kung Fu, Trailers of Fury. This is just 2 hours from Severin. This is on Blu-ray. Just 2 hours of Kung Fu trailers. And it's great. All of them from the 1970s and 80s. Some of the movies are better than the others, but all the trailers are really, really fun. And if you love those movies like I do, it's a real great trip down memory lane. It's a fun thing to throw on in the background during a party too. Put it on the background during a party. Fantastic. All right, that's it. We hope Mark is having a grand old time in Paris, and he will be back next week, and we will hear all about it.